you, and welcome to the Patriots 300 Level Podcast. My name is Eric. I'm joined by my co-host, Kevin. Welcome back for our 25th episode this week, where we'll be previewing this Sunday's Super Bowl and discussing news around the NFL. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Pats 300 Level Pod for up-to-the-minute updates and commentary on news of the day. So, Kevin, the big game this Sunday, 2 4 seeds facing off. What are your thoughts? What are you looking for this game?
I don't really have much thoughts on this game just because I don't really know too much about these teams going forward. I think I think Joe Burrow, from what I've seen, I've really liked his demeanor. I like this play. He's very really cocky.
Not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way, but a good way. He throws the ball pretty well. He's not like one of these athletic quarterbacks like a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, but I think he's one of those kind of pocket passers that can move a little bit around. He's not like a stature or anything like that. So I'm just really interested to see him going up against this defense with the pass rush. And because the Bengals offensive line is terrible. So I want to see kind of how that kind of comes into play. But he's really dynamic, especially Jamar Chase has been a really good receiver this year. So what he can do against this team, I think would be pretty interesting. And then also the Matt Stafford kind of effect. How is he going to play in this game? Is he going to crap his pants? Is he going to play well? Is he going to elevate his team? In the Super Bowl, you really need to, for the most part, play to elevate your team. If you can't do that, it's very rarely that you're going to win on defense alone. The 2018 Patriots was kind of a anomaly in that aspect. But I think both of these quarterbacks, one of them is going to have to step up and win the game for them. I think that's going to be the big key to the game. That's an obvious key to the game, but really, who's going to put their team in the best position? And I just don't think Matt Stafford. We'll get to this in the predictions, but I just don't think he can do that. I think he chokes too much under pressure.
No, I think that's good points. You would think for someone that was a number 1 overall pick, been in the NFL for 12 plus years, couple or 5,000 yard season, several 4,500 yard seasons, never a Pro Bowler, but was always top 10 quarterback. You want to think that he'd be the key to the game or the biggest question mark, but that's kind of what he is, because granted, most of his career with the Lions were atrocious. So it's tough to really say, what is he a product? Is that whenever he loses big games or things like that, is that a product of just his environment, or is he contributing to that? But we've seen it this year too, where some big games against good teams, and then what do we see? He's in the red zone and he throws an interception. It's a close game, third, fourth quarter, either winning by 1 or down by 1. What does he do? He throws a pick 6. So it's something. Even the Bucs game, they were I don't blame the choke on him fully, where there was like the 3 or 4 fumbles they had the entire game that were given away, the stupid penalties here and there, but still the Bucs tied up the game with 38 seconds to go. And then that first play or two, what does he do? He fumbles the ball. Luckily they recover it. And then 2 plays later, it gets Cooper Kupp for a wide open touchdown because Todd Bowles is an idiot. But then the next week, he's down either 10 or 3 points in the fourth quarter. I forgot which drive it was. He throws an interception, not close, or he throws the ball not close to anyone, right into the hands of the 49ers, and just drops it. And then luckily, then they get the touchdown after that. So he's gotten lucky, even though they've won the past 2 games. He still had in both games those typical Matthew Stafford meltdowns in key situations. So it's interesting to see what happens this week. Both offenses are pretty stacked. I think the Bengals offense is better. It's also more well-rounded. You have Joe Mixon, who's one of the best running backs in football, almost 1,300 yards this year, over 10 touchdowns. The Rams, I don't know. I know when I went to the game earlier this year, the Rams-Bucks, I said after that game, even though the Rams beat the Bucks, I don't think the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl because they're not well-rounded enough on offense, because their running attack wasn't that good. Sony Michel was able to step it up in the last half of the season, running for almost 800 yards. He was the leading NFL rusher in December. he still doesn't really look like he did in 2018 when he was with the Patriots, but he looks like he's able to give them something. And then why am I blanking on the other guy? Who's the guy that just came back from the Achilles injury?
Makers.
Yeah, K Makers. He looks actually pretty fast. So if they're able to get a good running attack and then keep the Bengals off balance on defense, I think they'll have a good shot. I think that's going to be one of the several keys to the game is if the Rams can get a good running attack going, and then because if they're not able to run the ball, then a good defense should pretty much double cover Cooper Kupp, and then have a good cornerback on Odell and see if Stafford can beat them with that. But if you are able to run the ball, do play action, then that opens up a lot more.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'm really interested in seeing is I've been kind of saying for every single week, basically in this playoffs, is when's the team actually going to be smart and take away Cooper Kupp, double cover him, put someone on, and make sure you focus your attention on him. So is this going to be the game that's finally done, or is this another instance where we're saying, why did you let their best player beat you? And even given that fact is if they do focus on Cooper Kupp, like you said, Odell Beckham, is he going to have a really good game? Because he actually he's looked pretty well in his past couple games. So how is he going to play? Is he going to get more balls because of that? And how is the team dynamic going to work that route? So it should be, that's one kind of big key just to see how this is all going to work out. Are they going to take away the best player? Because no team really has done that yet on him. Or maybe is he just good enough where he can, even if they are putting their attention on him, he can still break away. But it seems like most of these games lately, it's just he's getting either free releases or he's breaking through zones, and they're not kind of double covering him. They're trying to do their regular defense, which isn't working.
Yeah, no, that's what I was just going to add on to is it's not like they're trying to take him away this postseason. He's just still beating them. It's just either blown coverages or just stupid defensive calls in general, where he's just getting by the defense, getting by the zone for an easy touchdown. We saw that in the Bucs game. We saw that last week against the 49ers. And it just depends if you can stop him. It's tough to say if he'll be able to still do that. He's a really good receiver. He's been one of the best receivers the last few years, especially this year. So it's tough to say that he won't still do that even if covered, but we haven't really seen that, at least in the playoffs. One thing though is if you do take him out, then it's going to be, for the Rams at least, is Odell going to be able to lead the way like we've seen the last 2 weeks, where he had, I think, 10 catches, 100 yards, or close to that last week? Is he going to be the Odell of old again in the Super Bowl? Whereas for the Bengals, if you take out Jamar Chase, they're still stacked on offense. You have three receivers that could be a number one on not a lot of teams, but at least some teams in the NFL, with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and then Tyler Boyd. All are 1,000-yard receivers. I think Boyd was a little under that this year with like 900 or close to it, but still 3 elite receivers, a really good running back who can also catch out of the backfield. So that's going to be a little tougher for the Rams to handle. But they do have a good front seven. They can get pressure, and the Bengals offensive line is absolutely atrocious. So it depends on if the Bengals can get a good running attack going through that Rams defense, they'll be able to open up their offense even more. If they're not able to, then that's going to be, if they can't get running attack, it's going to be trouble for Joe Burrow, because then the defensive line, the front seven, is going to just be teeing off knowing it's pass. And against that horrendous offensive line, he could get killed. He got sacked 9 times in the divisional round versus Tennessee. And then this is one of the best, if not the best, front seven in the NFL.
I completely agree. We've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but just want to kind of hammer out, what would be your 3 key matchups of the game? If you had to give your top 3, what do you think would be the 3 key matchups and things to look for?
My number 1 is just the Rams front seven versus the Bengals offensive line. I think this is going to be, outside of a Matthew Stafford meltdown, pick 6, which could happen, I think this is going to be the key to the game that determines who wins and loses. If the Bengals aren't able to get a running attack going, and then they have to pass, and knowing that they have to pass, like I just said, the Rams are able to get pressure and force Joe Burrow, either sack him continuously or just force him where he's just throwing off his back foot. That's going to spell trouble for the Bengals and is going to put the Rams in a very good spot. If the offensive line is able to hold their own, get a good running attack going, and hold up enough in pass protection to allow Joe Burrow enough time, those three receivers and then even Joe Mixon out of the backfield, they're good enough that given enough time, they'll be able to get open. They'll be able to do something, and the Bengals will have a good shot. I think that's the number one key to the game. Outside of that, I think the other ones is just Bengals wide receivers versus Rams secondary, and vice versa, the Rams wide receivers versus the Bengals secondary. Depending on that, I think that's going to be the other keys to the game. If the wide receivers are able to beat the cornerbacks, or if the defensive scheme is able to hold them enough, limit big plays, I think it's going to keep the game close.
Yep. Yeah, I agree for the most part for my three. Number one, like you said, the Bengals offensive line is going to be a big key for them if they're going to want to win this game. Yeah. Rams have one of the top defensive lines in the game. And are they going to be able to handle that by already having a weak offensive line in general? So that's, I think, the biggest one, if they can get that running attack going, like you said. Number two, I would say Cooper Kupp alone, just for the Rams.
Yeah.
And the Bengals. So number one, is he going to get that attention? Like I said, are they going to eliminate him? And if he does, what are the Rams' second and third options going to look like? So I think that's the second one that it could really impact both teams in that situation. And the third, I would say, would just be the quarterbacks overall. None of them have been in this spot. I would say I'm not really too familiar with Matthew Stafford's college career at all. Burrow at least has had a national championship. So he's played in the big spotlight. He succeeded in the big spotlight. I think that was his only career. That was his only season starting, just like Mac Jones. But at least he's been kind of in the bright lights and stuff. Stafford, I'm not too familiar with.
He went to Georgia. I'm just pulling up there.
Yeah,
when he was there.
Yeah, if you want to pull up, I'll just keep talking about it. I just think just to see how these two quarterbacks will handle it. Burrow being his second year, basically his rookie year, because he didn't play all of for his first year. And then Matthew Stafford, who kind of chokes under the spotlight a lot. So what are both quarterbacks going to do here? Are they going to both step up, or is one of them going to kind of shrink in the moment? So I think that's a big kind of key of the game. What are they going to look like in this situation?
Yeah. So I just pulled it up. Stafford. Sorry, I lost my. He was 708.
All right, we can move on.
He won the two bowls he was in, the Capital One Bowl and the Sugar Bowl.
All right. So
not national championship, but they were pretty decent bowl games. Yeah. But I think, like you said, he's just someone that outside the front seven, I know it wasn't my key matchup, but just I think he's the X factor of if he plays like an MVP caliber quarterback like he did the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, I think the Rams are going to win or have a very good shot. If he's the typical Matthew Stafford like versus the Titans earlier this year, or just the 49ers week 18, I think the Rams are probably going to lose.
Yep. Going next, thing about LA for the host city overall. What are your kind of thoughts about that? I know you've been to the games before there. I know just listening to kind of the reporters there, just the surrounding areas, just like Massachusetts Meth Mile, where you've got drug addicts lining up. We've got a lot of homeless people. Just not in a great area from what it sounds like, and to have this really nice stadium kind of built in like the slums of LA. I'm not really sure what the thoughts are there. I'm not sure if it was just cheap property or if they're trying to really build up around the area and kind of bring up the area with them. But right now it doesn't seem like it's in the best spot overall.
Yeah. So I went to 2 games out in at SoFi this year, the Rams Bucks game to see Brady one last time, and then when the Pats played the Chargers. And when I was getting ready to go to the Rams Bucks game, someone told me, just be careful when you go there. And then also, if you're not parking in the parking lot, I'd be cautious about wearing outside opponents jerseys or anything, just because the area itself is not good, not necessarily because
Mhm.
it's avid sports fans and then they'll attack you or anything, just because
Mhm.
like since the area isn't great, like you just don't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
So the there isn't much parking there to begin with.
Mhm.
Like parking lot, there's like one tailgate lot, and then there's like 4 or 5 small lots for just people not tailgating,
Mhm.
and then the rest is parking garages.
Yeah.
So you get off the highway, it's about a 5 mile drive to the stadium. And from the second you get off the highway until you pull up to the stadium, it's just, I'm trying to find a way to put it nicely, but sort of just like this. I'll just put it as the slums of LA, where it doesn't seem like a safe area. It just looks not great, and it's unfortunate because you see a lot of homelessness around. You see people homeless on all the street corners. You see different things like that, and it's just unfortunate of everything you have to see going up to it. And then all of a sudden, you see the stadium all the way in the background, which the stadium's like a $6 billion stadium. It's gorgeous, brand new. It's just unfortunate. If you come from the other side of the stadium where the tailgating parking lot is, it's actually not that bad. Like the surrounding blocks are it looks like it's built up. It's getting a little better. So
Mhm.
I had the same thoughts when I was there. Did they pick this stadium because they're trying to regentrify the area by having games there? It might bring in more business, more money to the surrounding economy. It could give people in that surrounding area jobs at the stadium, help build up that area around it. Could it be part of that? Or is it just, since it is not a great area, it's just so much cheaper than anywhere else, and it's available land. It's not like downtown LA. There's anywhere you
Mhm.
can actually build a stadium. So, and it's a beautiful stadium, but it's just, I want to feel safe walking from one of the parking garages to the stadium.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this is just an interesting tidbit that's in no time before had a Super Bowl hosting city had the team from the area in the Super Bowl, and now we've seen it two of the last two straight times now. Basically,
Yeah,
you had a team in that same town going to the Super Bowl. So just interesting that it's just happened recently and it's taken this long. But
yeah.
um,
I think just the other interesting thing about it too is if it was to happen any time, for it to happen to these 2 times, it's not really as much of a home field advantage as other scenarios
mhm,
or other stadiums, because for the Bucks last year, it was COVID. So even though they didn't have to
mhm,
travel, like the benefit was they didn't have to travel, they didn't have to get hotels and
mhm.
everything. This year with the Rams don't really have big fans. So it's not like it's going to be filled entirely with Rams fans. It might be because it's LA. So just all the rich and famous are going to be the ones that can afford the tickets. But uh, if I'm not mistaken, I know LA, the Rams practice in Thousand Oaks, which is 45, 50 minutes north of downtown. I think they
Mhm.
actually fly to LAX for each game. I think they actually fly instead of drive there. So I wonder if the players are staying in local hotels as well, so it might not feel as much like a home game as normal.
Yeah, it could. Well, in the Super Bowl anyway, they don't usually let them. I don't even think the Bucks team they had them stay in their home. I think they usually try and keep them on like a structure. Like they keep them
Yeah,
in a hotel. Um, but yeah, it could be just interesting to see how that plays out.
yeah.
Kind of going to the predictions. Rams are favored by 4.5 points, over under at 48.5. What do you see your prediction for this game?
So it's a tough one. I could see it going either way. I think it's just the Rams are going to be too much.
Mhm.
Um, Even if Stafford does have a big interception, I think they'll still be able to. They have so much talent on that team. And then I think McVay, even though he had his moments last week where he felt the pressure, I think he's still better coach than Taylor.
Mhm.
So I think the Rams win 31-23, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Bengals win. Over under at 48.5. I'm going with the over. Rams are favored by 4.5. So I'm going with Rams spread and the outright.
I'm going more based on what I'm hoping is going to happen instead
Yep.
of more what I think is probably going to happen. So I'm going to say Bengals 27-24. Pick the over on that. And I think that they will do enough to win, and I think Burrow will be the one that leads them to win. Because I there's something about Burrow I really like. He's got that moxie. He's got that kind of swagger that you need as a winner.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's afraid of the moment. If anything that's going to ruin them would be the coach. And I do think highly of McVay, even though he basically coached to lose the last game. But I do think he's a good coach.
Yeah.
And also besides the Patriots fact where he couldn't anticipate them ever playing zone. And when he said specifically, you can change, you're really good at adapting and changing of things, and just didn't think they might play zone. So I think he's a really good coach, and that's why normally I would say Rams. I think Burrow's going to lead them to victory. I think it's kind of like I said last week. They feel more of that 0-1 Patriots kind of vibe.
They do. That's one thing where all their wins in the playoffs were close wins, and then some of them you could argue shouldn't have gone their way. Like the versus the Raiders first round, there was that just the refs once again.
Yeah.
Then against the Titans, it was Ryan Tannehill crapping all over himself, and then against the Chiefs, it was Patrick Mahomes crapping himself in the second half. So it's similar to the 0-1 Pats, where you think the Tuck rule shouldn't have happened, or a couple games here and there during the regular season, which gave them the bye the first week. So it is eerily similar with that. Both finished last the year before, but I just think it's going to be, I don't know if the O-line is going to hold up, and I just think the Rams just have too much. But we'll have to see. It should be interesting.
Should be an interesting game. Kind of now going to our lightning round of our 8 questions this week. So the first one: if Tom Brady never left the Patriots, ended up retiring this offseason, and assuming everything else around the NFL stayed the same, which probably wouldn't happen. Number one, would the Patriots trade for Jimmy G this offseason? And number 2, would you want the Patriots to trade for Jimmy G this offseason? I think you're going to know my answers.
I think they would, because chances are all the quarterbacks in this draft class are trash. There's some reports saying that they don't think there's a single quarterback that's going to be a starter or worthy of being a starter in the entire league. So it just depends on did you draft that guy last year or the year before, or is this finally the year that you hand the reins over to Jarrett Stidham, where Jarrett Stidham's the future? No. Sorry, Spike King. But I think just based on everything, unless you're somehow able to get Deshaun Watson, which I don't think they would based on everything going on, I think they'd be getting him because he's the cheapest, best option available. Would I want the Patriots to get him? No. He has no stones. He's made of glass. I'd want them to, unless you're only giving up like a 4th round pick where it's not much, I'd want them to try and go some other route.
I think everyone would know my answer on this. Yes, they would trade for Jimmy. They already tried doing it a lot last offseason.
I don't know if that's true.
And he was plan A, but the price tag was too much. Plan A was actually supposedly to trade for Jimmy and draft Mac Jones and have Mac sit behind Jimmy for a year. It probably would have been less than a year because Jimmy would have gotten killed behind this offensive line. Yeah. So, and then number 2, I want them. Yes. Just because I think out of any possible quarterback you get, he's the best one you're going to get. They could coach him up if he's not completely broken, which he may be now. He's 30 years old. Can they really undo the breaking that Shanahan did of him? So I think that will be just something to see. Next question. Is Jarrett Stidham on the Patriots roster in September, assuming they re-sign Brian Hoyer?
I say no. I think it's possible that he is, just because it's his last year. If they like him, he's a capable backup, cheap money. My reason for no is I don't know how much longer Hoyer is going to be in the league, how much he can stay or just keep up with the competition, keep up with his body. He's getting a little older. So I think that this might be, and they'd try and bring back Hoyer for another year where he can sort of be that quarterback's coach, mentor for Hoyer, while also drafting a capable backup for the Patriots the following year when Hoyer leaves. So I think they're going to, one person I do like, I don't know if they'll pick him, is EJ Perry, the Brown University QB. I think he could be someone that late round, he was one of the offensive MVP of the Senior Bowl. He could be someone where you take late. He's a flyer. Could be good. Or they've drafted Matt Castle in the 7th round. He ended up being good. Rohan Davey was bad in the 4th round, but he could be one of those where you draft him. He sits as the 3rd string this year, but learns behind Brian Hoyer, and then the following year is the backup for Mac Jones the next 2-3 years.
Yep. I think I would say he's not. I think he's going into his 4th year of his contract. They're probably going to want to trade him, get something for him at least, and then draft someone else, and have him sit behind Hoyer and Mac. So I'd say he's probably not on the roster. If Hoyer's back, if Hoyer's not back, I think there were reports they were really happy with him in his offseason work. So maybe they might want to just have him groomed for the backup quarterback for a while. And I can't imagine him going for a ton of money just because he hasn't shown much yet. And has kind of been hurt. Has a 50% pass completion percentage. So I can't imagine him going for too much money. Next question.
And then just one thing that I noticed of him this year, I've never seen someone so happy and complacent being an inactive quarterback week in, week out whenever you see him on the bench. So he could just be that Scott Zolak role where he's a lifetime bench quarterback, but I don't know.
Oh yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be a starter. I think he's always just too happy to be there.
Yeah. Which is one of the issues with him that they had going into last year when they thought he was possibly going to be the starting quarterback, and he just didn't take the reins, where he pretty much just handed over to Cam when he didn't really fight for it.
Yeah. Next question. Who's going to be the Pats offensive coordinator this coming year?
I say Mick Lombardi. I think with them bringing back Joe Judge, especially as an offensive assistant, I think that kind of shows that they're trying to have him be a mentor, someone that can help groom one of the young offensive coaches on their team, where usually they don't hire from outside for coordinators unless it's a former coach. So unless they go and get Bill O'Brien or maybe Chad O'Shea, I think that's the reason why they brought him back in that specific role. And I think it's going to be mixed since Bill is best friends with Mike Lombardi, his dad.
I still think it's going to be Kaylee is going to be the one that's going to be the offensive coordinator. Everything kind of points to him. There still is a chance that O'Brien does come back. Supposedly Bill was off last week, and that's why kind of some of the moves he's going to start making is going to be this week. So it could just be that he's getting his ducks in a row, just making sure he has a backup plan in case O'Brien doesn't come, or in case he can't get Gase or O'Shea. But I think still number one would probably be getting Bill O'Brien. If he can't, then I think it would be Kaylee, and then having Joe Judge kind of help him out in that aspect. But it should be interesting to see. Next question. Who's your favorite Patriots media personality?
Mike Reese.
All right. Mine is Greg Bedard.
Not surprising.
Next question. Who's your favorite national football personality?
Mine is Rich Eisen. I was interested to see who yours is.
That's a good one. Mine is kind of a mix. I'm gonna say Greg Cosell, because I really like his breakdowns of film. If it wasn't him, I would say Dan Orlovsky.
I like Dan.
I really enjoy him watching his breakdowns of film. And he's a pretty interesting follow on Twitter too. So he's really enjoyable to listen to and watch.
Yeah. One thing just on that note quickly is Ryan Clark, I also like as well. I hated him as a player. He was one of the dirtiest players in the NFL, but actually as an analyst, I like him a lot too. Him and Orlovsky are a good 1-2 combo on ESPN now.
Yeah. Next question. Why did Kyler Murray delete all of his social media info of the Cardinals?
That kind of took me by surprise. My guess, I don't know. It could be that he hates Cliff Kingsbury because he's an idiot and doesn't want him back. And he wants to leave if Kingsbury's the coach. I think it's just a negotiation tactic. This is his finished his 3rd year, so this is probably the year that he has the contract extension, because with the last CBA, you can't do rookie extensions until after their 3rd year. So I think that's part of the reason he's using it as a negotiation strategy of give me what I want or I'm out in 2 years.
Yeah, I think that could be it too. It's either that or he completely can't stand Cliff Kingsbury, which also could be the possibility too, just because we've seen him. He's never been a winning coach before. He hasn't been successful other than this year based on the talent he's had, but is it really his coaching or is it the talent around him?
Yeah.
And he didn't win with Patrick Mahomes. And he kind of underperformed this year with the Cardinals, and they kind of fell on their face towards the end of the year. So it could be one of the two things. Because you said the negotiation, I'm just going to take the other route. I think I'm going to say he hates Kingsbury.
That's fair.
Last question, real quick. In the last Let's Go podcast last night or the day before, Brady said, "Never say never." About possibly coming back and return to the NFL. Any thoughts on that? What do you think would be the possibility there?
I say there's still 0.0% chance he comes back. Only chance is if he gets divorced from Giselle, which I don't see happening. I think once you make that decision, he must have been thinking of it for a while. And once you finally make that decision, it's something I don't think he'll be coming back. I'm sure he'll get that itch once it gets to like training camp and preseason and once football Sunday start in September. But I think at this point, I don't see him coming back just because his age. I don't see him sitting out a full year, then coming back as well. But if he had the heart to say, I'm done, I think he's done.
I still think he's going to be coming back if the right situation arises itself. I don't think he ever wanted to step away. I think it was number one, what happened in Tampa. There was some breaking point there, especially with Arians, and a lot of people are kind of pointing to the Antonio Brown situation where Arians kind of pushed Antonio Brown's buttons to the point of him having his classic meltdown, knowing that it would happen because he didn't want him on the team anyway. So I think that kind of power struggle there, and also the fact that Tampa wasn't going to be as good next year. And so I think the only way he would want to play is going to a winning team. So it would have to be the right spot. But I can definitely see that happening. I also don't think he was the one that wanted to retire. I think he was kind of forced into two different ways. Number one, I don't think he wanted to play for Tampa. Number one, because of the coach. Number two, because they weren't going to be as good, and he doesn't want to play for a middling team. And then number two, it was the wife. So I think those two things made him kind of make his decision. But I think if the right situation arises itself, 49ers, Cardinals, maybe Miami, because they're building a house there. If they build the team up well, that could be the spot he comes back to. And don't forget, he's the one that gives these questions to Gray. So he purposely put that in there for a reason. So it could be interesting to see. All right. Well, on that note, it should be a pretty interesting Super Bowl game. Really excited to see how this goes through. It should be a lot less stressful not having a team to really root for here. So one of the only pluses about not having the Patriots move on there. But
let's hope they're back next year.
Hopefully. We'll recap this with you next week. Follow us on @Pats300level pod on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on any of your podcast platforms or on YouTube as well. Thank you very much, and talk to you next time.